Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And we are continuing with 100 days of DevOps. Today is day 45, and we started with GitHub Actions yesterday. I was able to do a brief introduction to what GitHub Actions is and also to compare it to Jenkins to prove that the concept of CI is the same thing. The tools are just different, which makes maybe the naming convention or how to go about it or their interface different. However, the concept remains the same. We are going to be doing the exact thing we did for Jenkins, where we define the framework of what we want to do, and then we start plugging in the commands or the things that we are going to do for those particular stages. So when I was talking about Jenkins, I I came here and this should come up. Okay, so I said for Jenkins, there's always a framework for not just Jenkins, whatever you're doing, there's a framework that you now build on. So we started Jenkins small, we defined the framework of what we want to do, and then we started building it little by little. So and I said these are the most important steps: pipeline, agent, stages, stage, and step for Jenkins. This then every other thing comes inside all of this. Then we have some other secondary things like environment and all other options. So same thing with um, GitHub Actions. So for GitHub Actions, there is also a framework for that, or like a template of the things that you're supposed to. These are the basic things, and then every other thing comes inside of them. So for Jenkins, the first thing you need to know is you need to understand that you need to give your CI a name. This is not the name of the steps, it is the name of your CI. That means what you want to build. Let's say, for example, now you can say you're working with Logger app, so we can say Logger app, just normal name that you can just give name of your application that you're building or anything that you want to do. The second thing you need to um know is on. On is a trigger. It's where you define the trigger. It is similar to if you watch the video to the end yesterday, I compared Jenkins and GitHub Actions. So this is it here. This is similar to the webhook trigger for Jenkins. So on is something that you have to know. And then the third thing that you need to actually know is jobs. Jobs. So these are like the building blocks. Yes, building blocks. That is the word. These are the building blocks for GitHub Actions. The name is the name of your CI, that's your workflow. On is the trigger, and then all your job comes under jobs. It's as simple as that. You see that it's even a little bit more, easier. Although when we start writing, you'll be introduced to other things like obviously there's environmental variables, there's secrets and all of that. So, but building block is name, on, and jobs, right? So we're going to take that to our VS Code. Like I say, I always like to write my codes on VS Code because of for one, it helps me to write things faster with the IntelliSense and it just makes things easier for me. So we are going to write this exact pipeline, this same pipeline. We're just going to write exactly the same thing, but in the GitHub Actions version. So we have the Jenkins version and the GitHub Actions version of the same pipeline, right? So let me create a new file. Let me create a new file. So I'll write it um, hand in hand. So like I said, the first thing you do is a name, and then the next thing is on, and then the next is jobs. So you can see that it's already even suggesting stuff to me, but we are not going to do that now. So For the name, we can say, let's just give it um Yoga app, Yoga app CI workflow. So Logger app CI workflow. Now that is all for the name. You can give it any name. So under on, which trigger do you want to actually use? Now there are so many triggers. If you come to the documentation, I think you should be able to, let me see, should be able to see triggers where we have like a list of triggers. Okay. Um, I'm just trying to look for it. Okay. Um, I should be able to. I saw it one time. I saw it one time, and okay, we can always go and search for it. We can go to. We can just type GitHub Actions triggers triggers. So let's see if we are going to see it. Yeah, events that trigger workflow. So we can always search for it. So you can see that everything starts with on. Then you have branch protection rule. You have check suits. I think these are it. These are the triggers on the left here. You have the check run. You have the check suits. You have the create. You have the delete. You have deployment and all of that. We are particular about push. Yes. So we want the push trigger. So you can the basic way to write it is this. So we can just come here and write on and then write push, right? Then we can now go further to specify the branch that we want it to trigger on. If you want to be specific about the branch, maybe you want a main branch, you don't want it to, you don't want it to trigger when there's a push to other branches. You just want the trigger to only occur on the main branch because um if you just put on and push and you don't specify the branch, any branch that somebody pushes to will cause a GitHub Actions, trigger. So sometimes you want to be specific of the branch that you want to push. So there are so many ways of, you know, defining define. So you just come here. If it is on pull request, you come and click on pull request. Just look at it and um, we want only push and we want the branch to be main. We want it to be the main branch. So then let's go to that's all for the trigger. Now let's go to and define our jobs. So like I said, we are doing just the framework. So we want to define our CI job. Okay, I'm not for the job. The first thing you need to actually define is, for here we have agents, right? Agent, which is the node, and that is similar to runner. And I said we can have either a Linux or Ubuntu runner, a Windows OS runner, we have a Mac runner. So for here, um, we are going to use runs on. That means we are defining our runner and we want Ubuntu. I think that is the common one. Ubuntu latest. Yes. So after that, since we've defined our runner, the next thing we need to do is write down your steps. Write down your steps. So I'm just going to click on tab, but I'm going to change all of this. So the first step here is code checkout. We'll come here and write, let me check out code. I'm going to change this to version 6 because that's the latest version. The next step is test backend. So basically you can see that it's just define your steps and all of that. So we check test backend. I'm going to delete all of this. I'm going to use run. So now there's a difference between run and if you notice, this one has uses while this one has run. Now, the difference between run and use is if you are using a plugin or a reusable code, when I showed you yesterday from the market, if you're using a block of code from the marketplace, you have to use uses because if somebody has already written that block of code, has already, turned it into a plugin of some sort. So now instead of using run, you use uses. But in a case where you want to explicitly write the command to actually, you know, work on that state, you use run. Run means you have a command you want to write. Uses means that, or is it uses? Yes, I think it's uses here. Uses means that you already have somebody has already written it, and then you're just tapping into it. For our pipeline here, we have to write echo checking out. Then we have to use this command git branch blah blah blah. So, but for this, since it's something that has already been turned into like an extension or a plugin, all we need to do is just use this. So this automatically checks out the code, right? Let me go back again and show you what I mean. This is the marketplace, and on the marketplace, we want a code checkout. You can see that this is green, meaning that it's like it was developed by GitHub themselves. All these other ones are from different persons. All these ones are like trusted. It's just like Docker image. Also, you see official Docker image, and you see other people have built their own type of Docker image. So yeah, we want to check out the code. So you can see that's why I changed it to version 6. This is the latest version, version 6. And you can see you use uses. You use uses. So that's the reason why I use uses here. And for here, I'm going to use run because what we are going to do is that we are running a set of command, right? So the next step is image build. So the next step is image build, and then it's also run. And then what's the next step? The next step is image scan. So we have image scan. We have a name, image scan, and then we have to define another step. So the next step is, I think, is push to registry or to remote registry. Is that it? Yes, push to remote registry. And this is basically um the summary of how our pipeline will look like. But trust me, it's not going to be like this. Remember when we started Jenkins, it was small, and then when we started writing and writing, it became like really big. So this is we've defined our stage. So from the next video, we'll start plugging in the commands or the uses for those particular stage. So get your mindset. We've defined our framework and we'll start building on that. So that will be all for today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Cheers.